Scary telling.
I could barely see anything as we made our way through the cemetery. The moon was hidden behind clouds, and the only light we had came from the flashlights we had brought with us. My sister Sherry and I had come here to dig up our father's grave, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of dread in the pit of my stomach. We finally found our father's headstone, a black marble slab with beautiful cursive writing that read, "Beloved husband and father." It was hard to believe that he was gone, but we had come here to make sure. Dad had been in the ground for only 3 weeks, but this was our 9th visit. Sherry was having a hard time moving on, and I couldn't blame her. As Sherry bent down and wept, I studied the headstone. No expense had been spared on the black marble or the beautiful cursive writing. Yeah, the guy was about as much a father to me as he was loyal to his wife. Planted beside the slab was a thin metal pole with a small golden bell attached. Tied to the bell was a string that came up out of the ground. The old man always had a fear of being buried alive, and that contraption was one of his final requests. "I just can't believe he's gone," Sherry managed in between sobs. I reached down and patted her shoulder, hoping she didn't hear the grumble in my stomach. Before I could help her back up, she let out a gasp, and I felt her tense up. "Did you hear that?" she asked in a hushed whisper. Hear what? Before I could finish, the tiny ching-ching of a bell sounded, and my heart began to pound. "It's just the wind," I said, but I couldn't convince myself any more than Sherry. We began to dig, shoveling dirt as fast as we could. But as we dug deeper, the ringing grew louder and more frantic. I could feel my nerves fraying, and I was starting to regret coming here. Hours passed, and we finally hit the lid of the coffin. We carefully cleared the remaining soil off the box, and Sherry's shaking hands grasped the lid. But as she began to lift it, a putrid stench filled the air, and my stomach churned. I knew what was inside, but I wasn't prepared for the sight that greeted us. Dad's bloated, blackening corpse stared at us with open, unblinking eyes. Sherry uttered a harsh moan and collapsed onto the coffin, and I stepped forward to try and comfort her. That's when everything went wrong. The corpse's hand shot up and grabbed Sherry by the neck. She screamed, and I grasped her legs, pulling with all my strength, but the creature was too strong. It yanked Sherry into the box, and the lid slammed shut. From inside, a guttural, inhuman voice moaned. I knew my favorite would come back to me. I was left standing there, alone and terrified, as the ringing of the bell slowly faded away. I stumbled backward, my heart pounding in my chest, as the ringing of the bell grew fainter and fainter. My sister had been pulled into the coffin by our undead father's corpse, and I was left standing alone in the dark cemetery. I could hear the sound of dirt being thrown around, and I knew that the creature was trying to escape the coffin. I didn't know what to do. Should I run? Should I try to dig up the coffin again and finish the job? I was paralyzed with fear and indecision. But then, I heard a sound that made my blood run cold. It was the sound of footsteps, heavy and deliberate, coming from behind me. I spun around, my flashlight beam cutting through the darkness, and saw the corpse of my father shambling toward me. Its skin was mottled and blackened, its eyes sunken and lifeless. But it was moving, and it was coming right for me. I turned and ran, my feet pounding the ground as I sprinted toward my car. I fumbled with my keys, my hands shaking so badly that I could barely get them in the lock. But I finally managed to open the door and climb inside, slamming the door shut behind me. I locked the doors, but I knew that wouldn't keep the creature out for long. It was undead, unstoppable, and it wanted revenge. I turned on the car and hit the gas, tearing out of the cemetery and onto the road. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew that I had to get as far away from that place as possible. As I drove, I could see the creature in my rearview mirror, its form getting smaller and smaller as I sped away. But I knew that it was still out there, somewhere, waiting for me to let my guard down. When I finally arrived home, I barricaded myself inside and tried to catch my breath. I knew that I had to be careful. The creature was still out there, somewhere, and it wanted revenge. As the hours passed, I tried to come up with a plan. I knew that I couldn't stay here forever, but I also knew that I couldn't let the creature catch me. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, it was over. The ringing of the bell finally stopped, and I realized that the creature had decayed into nothingness. But even though it was gone, I knew that I would never be the same again. The fear and trauma that night would stay with me forever, and I would always be looking over my shoulder, wondering if it would come back again. For days, I didn't leave my house. I was too scared to go outside, too scared to face the world again. Every sound, every creak of the floorboards made me jump, and I couldn't sleep at night for fear of what might come for me in the dark. But eventually, I knew that I had to face my fear. I couldn't stay cooped up inside forever. And so, I started to prepare myself. I bought a shotgun and a box of shells, and I spent hours practicing my aim. I set up traps around the house, hoping to catch the creature off guard if it ever decided to come back. And then, one night, I heard a noise outside. It was a soft scratching sound, like something trying to climb up the side of the house. I grabbed my shotgun and crept toward the window, peering out into the darkness. I could see the outline of the creature, its mottled skin glowing in the moonlight. It was climbing up the side of the house, its fingers digging into the wood. I aimed my shotgun and fired, the sound echoing through the night. The creature let out a guttural scream and fell to the ground, but I knew that it wasn't dead. I had to finish the job. I ran outside, my shotgun at the ready, and saw the creature standing in my front yard. It was disoriented, confused, but it was still dangerous. I aimed my shotgun and fired again, but the creature was quick. It dodged out of the way and lunged toward me, its fingers reaching for my throat. I swung the shotgun like a bat, connecting with the creature's skull. It let out a scream and stumbled backward, but it didn't fall. It was relentless, and it was coming for me again. I backed away, my shotgun aimed at the creature's chest, but it was getting closer and closer. And then, suddenly, I felt a sharp pain in my side. The creature had clawed me, and its fingers were digging into my flesh. I screamed and fired my shotgun, the force of the blast knocking the creature to the ground. It lay there, motionless, and I knew that it was finally dead. I stumbled back into my house, bleeding and shaking, and collapsed onto the floor. The fear and trauma of the past few days hit me all at once, and I sobbed uncontrollably. But I knew that I had survived. I had faced my fear and emerged victorious. The creature was gone, and I was still alive. In the days that followed, I tried to move on. I cleaned up the mess in my yard and tried to put the past behind me. But I knew that I would never forget what had happened. The fear and trauma would stay with me forever, a reminder of the horror that had come to my doorstep. As the days turned into weeks, I began to feel like I was being watched. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was following me, lurking in the shadows just out of sight. I tried to brush it off as paranoia, but the feeling only grew stronger. Every time I turned a corner or looked over my shoulder, I expected to see the creature, its mottled skin and sunken eyes staring back at me. And then, one night, I saw something that made my blood run cold. It was the creature, standing at the edge of my property, watching me. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest, as it stared at me with those lifeless eyes. I knew that I had to do something, but I didn't know what. I couldn't fight it off again, and I couldn't run away. But as I watched, the creature turned and disappeared into the darkness. I didn't know where it had gone, but I knew that it would be back. Over the next few days, I tried to prepare myself. I set up more traps around the house, hoping to catch the creature off guard. I bought more ammunition for my shotgun, and I kept it loaded and within reach at all times. And then, one night, it came back. I could hear its soft footsteps outside, and I knew that it was watching me again. I grabbed my shotgun and crept toward the window, peering out into the darkness. I could see the creature, its mottled skin glowing in the moonlight, standing at the edge of my yard. I aimed my shotgun and fired, but the creature was quick. It dodged out of the way and lunged toward me, its fingers reaching for my throat. I swung my shotgun, but it was too late. The creature's fingers dug into my flesh, and I felt its icy grip tightening around my neck. I struggled to free myself, but the creature was too strong. Its fingers dug deeper into my flesh, and I felt myself starting to black out. And then, suddenly, it stopped. The creature let go of me and stumbled backward, its eyes wide with fear. I looked down and saw the silver crucifix that I wore around my neck. It had burned the creature's skin, leaving a bright red mark where it had touched. It was then that I realized the unsettling truth. The creature that had been haunting me wasn't my undead father. It was something else entirely. I didn't know what it was, but I knew that it was evil. And I knew that it was still out there, lurking in the shadows, waiting for its next victim. With the realization that the creature haunting me was something beyond my father's undead corpse, I knew that I had to do something. I couldn't let it continue to terrorize me or anyone else. I started researching, poring over books and articles about the paranormal and supernatural. I visited psychics and mediums, hoping to get some insight into what I was dealing with. But nothing seemed to help. The creature continued to lurk in the shadows, watching me, waiting for its next move. And then, one night, it attacked again. I was in my bedroom, trying to sleep, when I heard a soft scratching at the window. I knew what it was, and I grabbed my shotgun, ready to defend myself. But when I opened the window, I didn't see the creature. I saw a woman, her face pale and drawn, her eyes filled with fear. She told me that she had been experiencing strange things in her own house, things that sounded very similar to what I had been going through. She begged me for help, and I knew that I couldn't turn her away. Together, we began to investigate. We visited her house and set up cameras and traps, hoping to catch the creature in action. And then, one night, we finally saw it. It was a dark, shadowy figure moving through the house with ease. It was fast and agile, and it seemed to be able to disappear at will. But we were ready for it. We had holy water and crucifixes, and we were determined to stop it. We chased it through the house, our hearts pounding in our chests, and finally cornered it in a small room. It lashed out at us, its fingers reaching for our throats, but we were prepared. We held up our crucifixes and splashed holy water on it, and it screamed in agony. And then, just like that, it was gone. We never found out what the creature was or where it came from. But we knew that it was gone, and we knew that we had saved ourselves and countless others from its terror. In the end, I realized that sometimes the scariest things in life are the ones that we can't explain. But with the right tools and the right mindset, we can overcome even the most terrifying of fears. And that is something that will stay with me for the rest of my life.